Perfect. Okay. So let's do another one. So let's say we have 64.85 divided by 1.5. I don't think we did this one, but if we did this one, we'll just do it again. Okay, so we've set it up as long division. But the biggest thing, and this is the last thing we talked about, was moving that decimal place. So you cannot have a decimal place in what you're dividing by. So you have to make it a whole number. So you move it over as many places as you have to. I'm going to make it a 15, but whatever I do here, I have to do here, which means this decimal place is going to be there. And then I like to rewrite it because I think it's really sloppy and really easy to make a mistake if I don't rewrite it. So that's really our division problem. And that was just moving a decimal place over one spot for both of them. And now we can divide. So 15 can't go into 6. How many 15s go into 64? That would be 4, because 4 is 60. I have 4 left over, bring it down to 8. How many 15s are on 48? Let's say 3 15s are 45, so 3, 45. Subtract, I have 3, bring down to 5. How many 15s are in 30? That would be 2. Now here, my decimal place is going to go here. 2, that's 30. With 5 left over, I have a 0. I'm going to bring that to 0 for 50. How many 15s are in 50? That's going to be also 3, which is 45. Ooh, then I have 50 again, and it's going to keep going, going, going. So what happens when the 3 keeps repeating, repeating, repeating? We put a line on top. Just the 3, though. The 3 is the only thing that repeats, not the 2. And that would be our answer.
Whenever we started dividing, did we move the decimal over to make it a whole number so it was easier to divide by?
That's what we did. Yeah, exactly. You have to. You're not allowed to divide by a decimal number. You have to divide by a whole number. So you have to move it over anyway. But yes,
Okay,
it makes
so
it
always.
yeah, it makes it much easier to divide when you're dividing by a whole number. Exactly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's do another one. Let's do 4.16 divided by 0.8. All right, again, we're going to set it up 4.16, 0.8, but we're not going to divide with that decimal. We're going to move it over, move 1, move over 1, and then I'm going to write my new problem. Because I moved it over, I don't need the 0, it's just 8. And this is going to be 41.6. And now
Somebody
we're going to
asked, how do you know when to stop moving the decimal?
Oh, I don't have my thing up. Oh, how do you know when to stop moving to decimal? When you get to the end. So let's say I have, I'm not going to divide this, I'm just sort of making up. Let's say I have 1.2, whoops, 2, 3, 4. Am I dividing it into something? I'm going to move it 3 decimal places. You go all the way to the end. And whatever I do there, I got to go 3 decimal places here. So you want to make this a whole number with no decimals. So no matter how much you have to go, you go all the way to the end, no matter how many decimal places you have to move. Is that all right? Make sense? You want to make it a whole number. Yeah, okay, good. All right, it's like this one. We had this here, we move it 1. We only need to move it 1. And that means I move this one 1. So you want to make sure this is a whole number with no decimals. And it depends on the problem, how many you have to move. I got my chat up now. Okay, so we're going to divide. So how many 8s go into 41? That'd be 5, 40, bring the 1 down, and then bring the 6 down. How many 8s go into 16? 2, but my decimal place is here, and my 2, and that would be my answer. Now, just to remind you, dividing, you can always check dividing by multiplying. So we can check this. We can check any of our answers, actually. We can do 5.2 times 8, 16. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 1 is 41. I have 1 decimal place, so I have to move it 1 decimal place, and I get 41.6. Now, because we moved the 8, the decimal place on the 8, you're only going to match that, but you know that's right because you just moved the decimal place. So I know my answer is fine. Let me see which one I have. Okay, let's do this one. 3. 1.638 divided by 0.35. So 1.638 divided by 0.35. This time, how many decimal places do we have to move? 2, right? Because we have 2. So this time, to make a whole number, I got to move this 2 decimal places, which means, I don't know why I did that. Hold on. Which means I got to move this one 2 decimal places. So I'm going to rewrite it. So 35, a whole number, and this one's going to be 163.8 because I had to move it 2 decimal places. Okay, let's divide. So 35 can't go into 1, can't go into 16, has to go into 163. Okay, so I'm not sure. So let me see. Let's try 3. 15, 105. Definitely could do better than that. So let's do 35 times 4, 20, 12, 13, 140. I think that's going to be it, but we'll just check. 35 times 5. 25, 175, definitely a 4. Okay, 4, which is 140. I subtract, I get 3 and a 2, 23. I'm going to bring down that 8. I also know the decimals here because it lines up with my decimal. All right, how many? Okay, we haven't got close to 238 yet. So how many 35s and 238? Let's try 6. It's close, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's definitely it. 6. 6, 210. When I subtract it, I get 28, but I got to add a 0 and bring it down. And we don't have 280 yet. So let's try 35 times 7, 21, 2, 3, 24. Okay, not quite, but I know it's the next one. I could tell. Okay, 35 times 8. We're going to check anyway. 40, 24, 28. Got it. 8, 280, remainder 0. That's my answer, 4.68.
So basically, if you need to keep going, you just keep adding zeros until you can't anymore.
Well, if it's a problem like that, like the first one we did was 3 repeating, so we can end it with 3 repeating. If it's one that's going to go on forever, they'll probably tell you to round it, which is actually the one I'm doing next. So great segue. Great segue. Love it. Because all the ones we've done have sort of ended, right? Because sometimes decimals will go on forever, right? Just keep going, going, going. So if there's one that does that, the directions will tell you to round. So this is what I have for this one. Okay, so divide. I'll give you the whole directions. Divide 23.4 by 0.57. Round your answer to the nearest. This is why you gotta remember your place values again, hundredths. So basically, this one is probably gonna go on for a while. And we don't want to sit here and do a whole bunch of decimal places. And when that happens, you'll be asked to like round it. This would be an example. Okay, so here we go. We're going to divide 23.4 divided by 0.57. Hey, I could also show you something else. So this one, to make it a whole number of 57, I have to move it 2 decimal places. So I get 57. That means I got to move it 2 places here, but there's only one number. So 1, 2, that means I have to add a 0. So this number is going to become 2340. So whatever you do here to make it a whole number, you got to also do here. I'm actually going to erase it and move it down a little bit. Got too close. 57, 23, 40. There we go. Now, basically my decimal's here. So whatever I add after that's going to be my decimal. But right now, that's what I have. Okay, so now how many 57s go into 234? So let's check. 15, 16, 17. Nope. I think it's probably next one. Let's see, 28, 35, 36, 30. Wow. Wow, how did I do that? How did I get 7? I said next one, and I put 7. 4, 28, 22, definitely 22. So 4. So 4 is, we're dividing to this number, right? So 4 has to go here. All right, so it's 228. I'm going to subtract them. Okay, this time I got to borrow. 3 becomes a 2. 8 becomes a 14. So if I subtract, I get 6. And I bring down the 0. All right, that one's sort of nice because there's only one. Only 157 goes into 60. 1. So 57 with 3 left over. I bring down to 0. But does 57 go into 30? No. So we're going to have a 0, which if you want to multiply it through, you get 0, and I'm left with 30. So I bring down my other 0. Now keep in mind, we're rounding to the hundredths, because you can keep going forever and keep going, but you still have to round to hundreds. So the hundredths is the next spot. This is my tenths. This is my hundredths. So in order to round, I have to find my thousandths to know if I'm going to round up or I'm going to round down. So I have to do 2 more parts of this problem before I can know how to round. So how many 57s are in 300? I'm thinking 5. 57 times 5, 35, 25, 26, 27, 28, definitely 5. Okay, 5. That's 285. Subtract. Okay, I'm going to borrow. That becomes a 2. That becomes a 10. That becomes a 9. And that becomes a 10. Ooh, okay. 5, 1, 15. 15. Okay, now I have one more decimal place I have
You
to.
did a lot of borrowing.
What's that?
I said you did a lot of borrowing from that.
Yeah, I did a lot of borrowing. I didn't even have to, because 285 minus 30 at 300 is just 15, but I wanted to show you the work. But okay, we have one more to do. This will tell us if we're going to round that 5 up or we're going to keep the 5 as 5. We don't really have to finish it, because I know right here, look at here, when I did 57 times 3, it was 171. So it's probably going to be a 2. We just know it's less than 5, right? It might not be a 2. It's less than 5. So I am done, because I can round this to nearest hundredths. So my rounding is 41.05. Tenths hundredths 2 means that the 5 stays. I don't round up. And that would be my rounding answer. And this kind of problem probably goes on for a while before it ends. And that's when they tell you to round. So you had a perfect question at a perfect time. All right, now I want to add to it. So when we did multiplying, we talked about multiplying by powers of 10, whether they were positive power of 10s or decimal power to 10. We're going to do that here with dividing. What happens when you divide by powers of 10? So dividing by powers of 10. So if I have 362.1 divided by 1000. Now this time we're not multiplying, we are dividing by 1000. Dividing by 1000 is going to make that number smaller, not bigger. I know when we multiply, it becomes bigger. Dividing is opposite. It's going to make this smaller. By how many? Well, there's 3 zeros. So I'm going to be moving this decimal place 3 places to the left. It's going to be a much smaller number. This is my new decimal place. Whoops. So my answer is going to be 0.3621. So you have to think opposite of multiplying. Multiplying makes it bigger. Hold on. So I just saw I just saw a message that someone sent. I did this problem yesterday. I got 41.052631578947. Somebody actually did it. Okay. Yeah, and that's what I have you round because I mean, how long did that take? Probably forever, right? So that's what I have you round. So if they don't say round, it pretty much means it's going to end. That's what's going to end. But when they say round, it probably means it goes on forever. Okay, so 2. Let's say I have 142.35 divided by 10,000. Hey, dividing makes it smaller, not bigger, smaller. So we're going to take that, I'm going to write it over here, 142.35. We're going to move it. How many decimal places? How many zeros? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is going to be, I always put a 0 in the front, 0.014235. You don't have to put a 0 in the front. You can just put 0.014235. Let's do another one. 799.32 divided by 100. So again, dividing is going to make it smaller this time, but dividing by that power to 10. So I'm going to move that decimal place 2 places to the left. So it was 799.32. I'm going to go 2 places to the left, and I'm just going to rewrite it 7.9932. Answer. Okay, thought for a minute. Question? Anything? Now, the opposite thing happens if you multiply by a decimal of powers of 10. So let's say I have 234.37. My points are not coming out. And I'm going to divide by, this time it's going to be a decimal of a powers of 100. So a small powers of 100. 0. I'll just do 1 for it right now. All right, so now you're divided by a decimal of 100. Now it gets bigger. It goes opposite. So now I know when we multiply by a decimal of a small power of 10, it becomes smaller. This one becomes bigger. It's like dividing by 1/10. And you guys know, actually, I'm going to show you why it becomes bigger. Divided. This 1 is really 0.1 is 1/10. And we know that when we divide, we actually keep, change, flip. So I'm actually multiplying it by 10. That's what I'm really doing. We divide by a decimal. You're multiplying by it. So what happens is it becomes bigger. So just know that if a decimal, you're dividing by a decimal of a powers of 10, it's going to become bigger. So instead of 234.37, it's going to move over one decimal place because you're really multiplying by 10. So it becomes 2,343.7. Becomes bigger by one decimal place. 5. 23.9 divided by 0.01. So this time you don't really count the zeros, you count how many decimal places. So this is going to be almost like multiplying by 100. So I have 2 decimal places, so I can become bigger by 2 decimal places. So 23.9, I'm going to move it 2 decimal places to become bigger. So decimal place is going to be at the end, which means we don't need it. So the answer would be 2,390. Then I'll show you one more. 6. Let's do 56.492 divided by 0.0001. We'll do a big one. All right, I have 4 decimal places. That means I have to move the decimal place 4 places. So 56.492, I'm going to move it 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. Means I have a 0. My decimal is going to be there. So it would be 564,920. Any questions?
I was a little confused on number 4.
4. Oh, when I try to show you what's multiplying by power of 10. That's really multiplying. Is it dividing by 0.1 is really multiplying by 10?
I think it's just because you used a fraction. Maybe my brain is like not understanding.
Yeah. I was trying to show you why it gets bigger, because when you divide by a decimal, which is also a fraction, you're actually multiplying, like keep change flip, you're multiplying by the reciprocal, which is a reason it becomes bigger. You don't have to really know this, you just have to realize it gets bigger, but that's why. Because a decimal is really multiplying by power of 10, which makes it bigger. That was
Okay.
kind of my proof to show you why it becomes bigger. Okay, awesome. All right, now sometimes I'm going to throw this in here. Whoops, we'll be asked to evaluate. Actually, anytime they can ask you to evaluate. So example, we've done this before, but evaluate X divided by Y when X equals 0.035 and Y equals 0.02. So it's just a divide problem in disguise. So they set it up looking like it's algebra related. So the first thing we do is we substitute our X and we substitute our Y. So X divided by Y is really 0.035 divided by 0.02. So we plug in what they give us, and then we're going to do a divide problem, just like we did before. So X divided by Y is 0.035 divided by 0.02. And now we're going to set it up. So 0.035, 0.02. Now see how this is a decimal places here? I got to make it a whole number. So I have to go all the way to the end, which is 2 decimal places, which means I got to move this one also 2 decimal places. So this one, if I rewrite it, 2 is here and 3.5 is here. This doesn't look like a bad problem at all. Okay, 2 goes into 3 once. 2. I have a 1 left. I'm going to bring down to 5. My decimal place is going to go there. Because it doesn't say to round, it's probably going to end. So we're going to go till it ends. All right, how many 2s are in 15? 7. That's 14. Subtract. That's going to be 1. And then I'm going to take that 0, add a 0, and bring down my 0. And then how many 2s are in 10? 5. 10, and I have a 0 remainder. So my answer, I'll put it right here, is going to be 1.75. And that is the end of 5-4. Questions before we go on to 5-5? 5-5, we're going to tie in decimals and fractions and put them more together. You're going to see how they're related too. Go ahead. I don't know who was talking, but go ahead. I heard somebody.
Oh, my bad, Miss Garrett. I just keep messing up.
You keep messing up.
Yeah, I keep messing up.
Can you see me?
Do you know where you're messing
Is
up?
my camera not
Do you know where you're messing up? Or do you see what you did wrong? I guess I should say.
I'm fixing it, but I just keep messing up.
Okay. I guess practice.
Thank you.
Practice. Practice. Just go over these notes and practice. Dividing is the more tougher operation. Multiplying seems to be easier than dividing all the time. Dividing seems to be the harder one. And just practice. I think you'll be fine, because I know your math is good. All of your math is good. I think you'll all be fine. Just have to get a little bit of practice, which the homework will help a lot too. All right, so let me make a new page. 5-5. So this sort of puts our decimals and our fractions together. Okay, so fraction is called fractions, decimals, and order of operations. It's got it all. Order of operations. So we're going to take fractions and write them as decimals and write them as fractions at first. So we're going to go back and forth how to do one to the other each way. So we're going to start with writing each fraction as a decimal. So we're going to write each fraction as a decimal. And then we're going to go backwards. But we'll start with this one. Okay, say I want to know what the decimal form is of 2/5. There's actually 2 ways to do it. The first way is just divide them, because 2/5 is really 2 divided by 5. So 2 divided by 5. That's really what it means. And then since 2 ends with a decimal place, I'm going to have to add a 0 to figure this one out, because I know I can't divide 5 into 2, but I can divide 5 into 20. That would be 4, and the decimal place would go here, and then this would be 20, and I have 0 left. So 2/5 is equal to 0.4 decimal. All right, there's also another way to do this one. Whenever it is multiple of 5 in the denominator, and you can pick whatever way you want, it doesn't matter. So if you don't understand the way I'm going to show you, or you don't like it, you can always divide. What I can do is, hold on a second, let me review something. If you have something over 100, let's say I had 12 over 100, right? That is 0.12 because you're moving a decimal place. That's what we did, right? We're going to move a decimal place 2 places to the left. I have 2 zeros, right? Makes it smaller. If I have 5 over 100, I'm also going to move that decimal place 2 places to the left, and my decimal would be 0.15. And that could do for anything. Notice I'm doing 100 because 100 is like 100%. So I can multiply to get 100. If it's a multiple of 5, like 5. 5 times 20 is 100. So I can multiply this by 20 to get 40. And once I know it's 40 over 100 means like 100%. This is like 40%, basically what's saying 40%. But in decimal form, I would move the decimal place 2 places to the left, and I would also get 0.4. It's a very different way to get the decimal answer. I'm going to do a few of them as we go on whenever I have a multiple of 5. I can't do it. You can't do it unless you have a multiple of 5. Something that has it can be divided by 5. But
Wouldn't that be 0.05 instead of 0.15? When you did the 5 over 100?
oh yeah. What did I put a 1 there for? Yeah, it's definitely 0. I don't know why I put a 1 there. I saw a 1. I think because I'm pointing to the 1. Yes, yeah. So if you can get it to be something over 100, you need to do decimal place 2 places and you'll have your decimal. That's one way. All right, this one we can't do it to because it's not a multiple of 5 in the denominator, it's 8. This one, the only way you can do it is divide. So first I know my answer is negative because I have a negative in the front. So when I write this out, 3 divided by 8, I know my decimal place is here, but I'm going to put a negative here just to remind me that the answer is negative. And then we're going to divide. Okay, so we couldn't divide by 3, so we had to add a 0. How many 8s are in 30? That would be 3 is 24. Yep, 3 is 24. That means 6 is left. I'm going to add a 0 and bring down for 6. Whoops. 60. All right, how many 8s are in 60? 8 times 7 is 56. So I think it's 7. 56, I subtract, I get a 4. I add another 0 and bring it down. And this one ends nicely too, because how many 40s or how many 8s are in 40? That would be 5. 40, remainder 0. That's my answer, but I always like to add a 0 to the front. So it's negative 0.375. You don't have to add the 0 in the front. Most of the time you're going to see it though. It's not wrong not to have. It's not wrong not to have it. Three. 5 over 6. Again, the 6, the denominator is not a multiple of 5, so I have to divide it. 5 divided by 6. This is going to be a decimal with 0. I'll put my decimal here. Okay, how many 6s are in 50? That would be 8 times 6 is 48. 2, add a 0, bring it down, 20. How many 6s are in 20? That would be 3 for 18. Subtract, I bring down a 2. I bring down a 2 and bring down a 0, and I have 20 again. Okay, so what's going to happen? I got a 3, I got an 18, I have again 2, and I'm going to bring down to 0. See what's going to happen? It's going to be 3 repeating. So my answer is going to be 0.8 with the 3 repeating. You don't have to keep going. Once you realize the number is repeating, you just stop and you write it as a repeating. Now, be really careful that you don't do this. because that would be wrong. That means the answer was 0.838383, and that wasn't it. It's just 83 repeating. So be really conscious of where you put that line. The only thing that repeats gets that line. Okay, let's do another one. 2 divided by 9. 2 divided by 9. Again, I'm going to have to point and my 0. All right, how many 9s go into 20? 2 for 18. I subtract, I get 2 left over. Just in case you don't realize what's going to happen again, that's going to be 2 again, which is 18 with 2 left over. So it's going to be repeating 2. So my answer is going to be 0.2 repeating. So just like what we did earlier, let's say they give you a fraction that's going to go on forever by dividing, right? So they're going to say something like this. This one's going to say round to the nearest. This is your clue that's going to go on for a while. Hundreds. So they want you to round it, which means we're going to get round to the, if you want the hundreds, we're going to go to thousands, and then we're going to round. So it is 28.
Someone put in the chat that they got a different answer from you. They got 0.33075.
For which number? Which one? For which one?
I don't know, but I
It
don't know.
would
if
have
it's
been
3
number
or
2.
The first one?
Number 2.
Number 2? 3 divided by 8?
That's the only one with those numbers. So I'm assuming it's number 2.
Yeah, 0.375. 0.3075. Let's see. Where would the 0 come from? Hold on. It is 0.375. I just put it in my calculator just to make sure I didn't mess up, but it is 0.375. So let's see. 24, 6, bring down to 0. I don't know if maybe you forgot to bring down to 0, like here, and then thought it was 0 in between. I'm not sure. Go back and check that just to make
No,
sure.
where the 6 is.
What's
So
that?
where the 6 is, wouldn't it be 0? And then when you add the 0 to 6 to make it 60, wouldn't there be a 0 in front of the 7 for the answer?
No, because we're bringing it down. We're still bringing it down. Hold on. 3.000 divided by 8. So this was 3. This was 24. Subtract. Oh, because I added zeros, right? Hold on. It was 3. Here, let me go back to the beginning. It was 3 divided by 8, right? Okay, so
No, you're right. You're right. I see it.
you sure? You see it? Because we had to bring down a 0, so it made it 60. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Perfect. I'm sorry. I'm not really paying attention to the chat. All right, fine. Round to the nearest hundreds. And what was I writing? Oh yeah, 28 over 13. So pretty much it's going to tell us that this decimal is going to go on for a while, so we have to round it. So 28 divided by 13. Luckily, it's bigger than 1. So how many 13s go into 28? 2, which is 26. I have 2, but I'm going to bring down my 0. How many 13s? Oh, that means I have a decimal here. How many 13s do I have in 21? I have 13. I subtract, I get 7. Then I can bring down my 0. How many 13s are in 7? I believe it's 5. 65, yes, 5. Now, keep in mind, we're rounding to nearest hundreds. This is my hundreds. So all I need is the next one to know if that 5 is going to be 5 or a 6. All right, so that's 65. That's a 5. Bring down my 0. If 5 is 65, that means this one's probably going to be 4. Not even 4, it's going to be 3. I can stop. Once I know it's 3, I'm done. So if I round it to the nearest hundredths, it'd be 2.15. Okay, now we're going to we're going to take our fractions and go to decimals. Well, don't do fractions. Not going backwards. Fraction decimals. I'm doing compound fractions to decimals. I got to do that first. All right, so let's look and see if it's compound fraction. How do you do a compound fraction? So write 2 3/10 as a decimal. Well, the 2 is just 2 point. We don't have to do anything with a 2. We just have to figure out what 3/10 is as a decimal. 3/10, that's just a 3/10, right? So that also means it would be 3. But if you don't know that, you're going to do 3 divided by 10. You're going to go, okay, I got to add a 0, which means my decimal is here. How many 10s are in 30? 3, 30, 0. So this is my decimal form of 2 3/10. So the whole number stays, and you're going to divide your fraction to find your decimal of your fraction part. 7, same kind of idea, 3 5/16. 3 is my whole number. That just stays as 3 point. 5/16, I got to figure out what the decimal representation is of 5/16. So we're going to have 0.0, means my point is here. How many 16s are in 50? I believe that's 3, but let me check. And again, I'm wrong. Oh, no, I can't multiply. 16 times 3 is 18, 48, yeah, 3. 48, that makes 2. Add a 0, bring it down. It's only 1 16 and 22. Minus 16. That would be 6
That's good.
left
That should
over.
say 20, not 22, right?
What I do? Yeah,
Put 22, shouldn't it be 20?
20. Yes, sorry. Thank you. That would be 4. That sounds better to me. All right, 4, add a 0. How many 16s are in 40? It has to be 2. If 3 is 48, it has to be 2. So that would be 32. That's 8. Add a 0. Bring down to 80. And I think this is my last one. I think this is 5. Yep. And this is 5. That's 80. 0. Okay, so it's 3.3125. That's all right, so I want to go back and do, I want to look at changing fractions in the decimals using powers of, when it's a power of 5 in the denominator, something like this. I just want to look at it one more time. So let's say I have, I want to write the decimal, write the decimal form of each fraction. I want to spend just a little bit of time on looking at when the denominator is a power of 5. So let's say I have 3/50. All right, your goal is to make it 100. Of course, you can divide it by hand, but I sort of kind of want to give you a little bit more insight on how to do these. So I want to make it 100. If I want 100, I'm going to multiply this by 2, which means I multiply this by 2, which makes 6/100. So 6/100, like we talked about before, means that I'm making this smaller by 2 decimal places. So I take my 6, there's my decimal place, and I'm moving it back 2, 1, 2. So my decimal form would be 0.06. You can also read it as this, it's 6/100ths. This is a tenths, this is my hundredths. So you really don't even think about moving a decimal, you can think about it as 6/100ths. It has to be in a hundredths place. The 6 has to be in a hundredths place. You can think of it just like that and write it out. All right, 2. Let's say I have 9/10. My goal is to get it to be something over 100. So I can multiply 10 by 10, which means I'm going to multiply 9 by 10, which gives me 90/100. Okay, so that's 90/100, which means if I simplify, it's 9/10. I don't even have to do any of this. 9/10 is 0.9, or if I do it this way, I'm going to move it back 2 decimal places and get 0.9. But 9/10 is just 9/10, so 0.9. 3, 16/25. Okay, I can multiply this one by 4, which means I multiply this by 4 and 464. Which means this answer is going to be 0.64. So I'm moving it 2 decimal places. When you have numbers like this, like 23/100 or 56/100 or 8/100 or even 7/10.
Did you make a mistake from number 2?
2? I don't think so. Why?
Did you make a mistake? Because you got 0.9, that would be like in the tenths place.
Yeah, because you're moving
And
you're moving a decimal place 2 places to the left.
Oh, I thought it would have been
Or
0.09.
you look at this, 9/10 means 9 has to be in a tenths place.
Oh, it's just because how you got 90/100, I would at least thought it was 0.09.
I also thought it would have been 0.09. Because wouldn't 9 as a whole number be 9.0?
You guys lost me all. I'm actually confused. What's the question? I don't know.
So on number 2, how it's 90/100 or 9 or 90/100. Oh, okay. I
Because
see
why
you could be confused because it's not 9, it's 90.
yes, but 90 you don't need a 0.9. But it's also because you're divided by 100, you just move the decimal place 2 places, which makes it 0.9. But you don't need the 0. Again,
I was
doesn't make it
thinking
different.
like 9 as a whole number because 9 as a decimal would be 9.0. So I was thinking 9 instead of 90.
Got it. Got it. This might help anyway. Okay, so 23/100 means it's going to be 0.23. 56/100, 0.56. 8/100, 0.08. They have to be in the 100 spot. It has to end in the 100 spot. 7/10 is just going to be 0.7. But if I do 70/100, that's going to be 0.70, which is still 0.7. Just you don't need the 0. That's sort of kind of idea. That cleared up a little bit. I guess we could have dropped this to 0. It confused you. But so 80/100, 0.80, but you don't need the 0, 0.8. But keep the 0. Nothing's wrong with the extra 0. That makes it look better. That's fine. Or feel better for you. It's fine.
Would that make our homework wrong though, if we kept a 0?
Nope, they won't mark it wrong. Yeah, you can add as many zeros as you want at the end. Doesn't change the answer. It's still 0.8 or whatever it is. You're fine. You're fine, you're fine. And if it did mark it wrong, which I don't think it would, I would have your work and I don't think I marked it wrong.